Welcome to day 37 of my small account challenge of growing a $2,000 account using Charles Schwab as my broker. I am beside myself. The roller coaster today was open. Yesterday, on the roller coaster ride, I went down $18,000. You know what happened today? I shot back up $19,000. I'm beside myself. I can't believe it. I really can't. I did not think there was a way that I would make back all of yesterday's loss in one day. Because, well, one of the things I had mentioned that was going to be a challenge with this loss was that because I'd been growing my account up to what was $80,000 before the drop, when I dropped it down to $60,000 yesterday, rounding a little bit, I had less buying power, which meant a full-size position, well, you know, the same percentage move wouldn't give me as much as it did when I had $80,000 in the account. But what ended up happening today was we had a stock price at about $2 a share, and it squeezed up to $4 a share, and it did it in less than 5 minutes. Wow. Now, I didn't get in at 2 and sell at 4. No one can catch the entire move, but I got in the middle on a micro pullback just over 250. So if we zoomed into this right here, you know what we would see? Well, we'd see a pattern that I suppose looks a little bit like this. Let me erase this though. We'll start fresh. We had a pattern where we got this sort of rapid acceleration. The candles were getting bigger and bigger, and it hesitated just for a moment, just enough to give a little bottoming tail, and then it shot higher right there. And this was my starter, and then I was adding into the squeeze, and as we got that final push up to $4, a big seller came in, and that was when I pulled the ripcord. I jumped out of the position, and so today I am up $19,000. And so this is great news for the children's hospitals because I was able to donate to South Carolina Children's Hospital and the Sunrise Children's Hospital in Nevada, which means we have now donated to 49 children's hospitals across the country. There is one left to go, and it is Wyoming. But Wyoming doesn't have a children's hospital. So if you have any suggestions of a good charitable organization in Wyoming that could benefit from a $5,000 donation, please let me know, because my guess is that, well, it's the last state on the list alphabetically, and because I knew this issue that they didn't have a children's hospital. So please let me know what we should do for Wyoming, which will be coming up probably on day 38. Of course, if day 38 can be a green day, and I hope that it will be. So we've raised over $469,000, and I've donated $470,000, as you can see right down here in the corner. So I'm really thrilled with the progress on this challenge, and the next stop for the small account is to cross over $100,000, and I'm 80% of the way there, so that's going to take a few more days, most likely. So this morning we come in day 37, and our leading gapper is SGLY. Now, when I first saw SGLY in the scans, I sort of took pause. I thought, you know, it's a tough one because it popped up. Didn't it pop up just recently and not hold up? That was what I recalled. They had just popped up recently and didn't hold up very well. And so I was sort of feeling skepticism. On the other hand, I was looking at all of the other leading gainers, and none of them were even close contenders. BTCT, it's a cryptocurrency stock, and although crypto was up yesterday on some news from the White House administration about some positive headlines about their view on cryptocurrency. I'm not really that interested in trading crypto yet. While it's true that what Bitcoin's up, 5 or 10% this week, which is good. I saw Sol SOL is up like 16% this week. See BTC price this week. It's up 3.5% today. Bitcoin up 13% on the week. And it's that's a decent move. It's still well off the all-time highs, so let's not get too excited. So BTCT, some traders are jumping on this crypto stock. I wasn't interested in that. So I felt that there was no question that SGLY was our number one leading gainer. And I made a couple observations from my trades yesterday. Are you ready for them? Let's go back. No. Okay, here we go. So number one, I observed that I have been taking a lot of trades where the MACD was negative. I've been taking those trades because in recent weeks, we've had some big curls. We had this initial move, it pulls back, and then we have this big curl back up. And I've nailed some of those, and I've gotten nailed on some of them. Some of them work out really well, and some of them I've gotten smoked on. And I'm having a bit of a hard time deciphering which curls are going to go back to the highs and which ones won't. But as I looked through the trades that I did poorly on, what I recognized was that the curls that have been doing better have been on one of the top 2 leading gainers. Now, that's, again, not perfect. There are some instances that have been exceptions of that, but that's been pretty consistent. So number 1, trading when the MACD is negative, trying to time a curl when the stock was not obvious, that's been a problem. Trading past the 9:30 opening bell and halt levels, that's been a problem. I've struggled on days where we've had dispersed attention, where it hasn't been, where the leading gainer hasn't been that clean, and traders are kind of jumping from stock to stock, playing hot potato, looking for the second or third most popular, and it just hasn't worked out as well for me. I've struggled when I missed the whole front side of the move, and then I traded at the very top. I tend to overcompensate. And all of that has resulted in me falling victim to FOMO. But I have also noticed that I've done really well on some inverted head and shoulder patterns when the stock has been one of the leading gainers. So on SGLY this morning, I acknowledged that although I was not the biggest fan of it, that it was quite obvious. So I analyzed it, did my analysis on the 5 pillars of stock selection. It met 4 out of the 5. The only one it didn't meet was a fresh news catalyst. Well, at least that was my assessment initially, but let's just double check SGLY. SGLY. The thing is, so they just announced, so they announced an offering at the opening bell, a $5 million offering. Yikes, I didn't even see that. I turned off my charts so I could just focus on the recap. Wow. So, yep, there you go. So anyway, so met 4 out of the 5 pillars, but there were a couple issues. One was that the 200 moving average on the daily chart is right here at about $7.23, $7.29. That was my first concern. The second concern was that 2 days ago, we were up on 12 million shares of volume and we had a big red candle. So then I looked at the daily chart, of course, remembering and recalling that move, and I observed that we had this pop after hours, popped up, and then it pulled back, and then it sold off right here. So I sort of felt that I didn't think I could really trust it. And when I looked at the filings, I noticed that they did an offering of 1.8 million shares just a couple days ago. So they're doing back-to-back offerings to raise money. One here, another one here. They are absolutely selling shares on the open market to cash in on the volatility in the market. They're taking, look, are they taking advantage? I don't know. They're capitalizing on the opportunity as we would as well as a trader, but as the company, they're selling the shares because the price is up and there's a lot of volume. So, this morning when it suddenly popped up here to a high of 6, I was thinking, well, what's the high from the other day? And it was way up at 989, right? So I looked at that and I thought, that's a little tricky. But here's the way I'm looking at it. We've got a trigger right here, which was about 766. And above that, you've got room up to 989, which was this high here. That's kind of what I thought. So I looked at that line at 766 as a pivot. And then coming down, a small pivot there at 716. And maybe, what did I draw this line from? That was the pre-market high right there. So initially we pop up, we pull back, we pop up, we pull back. Because it was the leading gainer, I was watching it going into 7 a.m. And that right there, boom, that was the trade that I got. Right at 7 a.m., we got that squeeze right there up to a high of 850. That was a nice pullback. This is a cup and handle formation. I've got no problem with it. Ends up turning into a traditional head and shoulders pattern, which typically results in a drop. But the drop was not because of the pattern. It was because of the catalyst that came out that they sold more shares on the market. All right, so that was SGLY. So although it was not picture perfect, we got a really nice micro pullback right there. This is on the 10-second chart. And I was able to lock up a total of $6,496.90. Okay, so that was my first trade. That's a solid trade, really good, not $19,000. Cue trade number 2. So the second stock pops up and it's HUIZ, 6.4 million share float up on 220 times relative volume, and it's a little on the cheaper side. All right, now I checked the 5 pillars of stock selection on this one as well, And I observed that generally speaking, it met my pillars quite well. I had the relative volume mark just a little bit higher here. The float a little bit higher, 6.4 million shares. But aside from that, was willing to take a little risk. Now, this to me was sympathy to this big move on XHG and Socket, SCKT. XHG, which went from 50 cents to $18 in one candle, and Socket, which went from 50 cents up to about $4 a share in a couple of candles. So this hits our scanner as it breaks over $1.90 and $2. It goes immediately up to $2.40 and $2.50. At that point, I type in my level 2 window, HUIZ. I'm already seeing 260 print, and I press the buy button because now I see this thing is moving fast. I punch it. I'm in about 13,000 shares. 275, 285, adding for 290, adding for the break of 3. It rips up to a high of 320, 330, 340, 350, all the way up to a topping tail of $4 a share. I pulled the ripcord and got profit, well, in the middle of this squeeze. Sort of as it came back down, I was getting profit. It dips back down. I did a dip trade. I think the dip trade was actually right in here for a curl back up. It was not able to get back to the high on that first push. However, it did end up getting back to $4 a share. So HUIZ. We had this initial squeeze right here. So this was the first push right there. It pulls back and then it rallies back up to a high of 430. And I was feeling like, boy, this thing might give us some more opportunities. But through this area right here, so we got this rally back up to the top. And so this is, by the way, what has given me now $12,826 of profit, and I'm up, as you can see here, $19,000 on the day. The account's now back up over 80,000. So that was this squeeze right here, and then the curl through here. It ends up coming back to VWAP, going sideways, and at this point, traders were saying, do you think it's going to work for a trade at the open? And I said, I'm not sure. Yes, it's the leading gainer. On the other hand, it's now becoming very thickly traded. There's a window where these are too thinly traded. The spreads are too big, like WETO. You really can't manage risk on them. We'll pull up the level 2 on WTO. By the way, no trades in my big account today, just focused on trying to get some redemption in the small account. So look at the spread on WETO, 3160 by 3199. So you've got bigger spreads on this one. And unfortunately, this is common when you get higher price and it still has 3 million shares of volume, but there's not a lot of liquidity. Then on the other hand, you have a stock that is, quite thickly traded. So, well, let's see, where was it? HUIZ, sorry. So we pull up HUIZ, and this is a bit more stacked on the bid. Big buyers, but also sellers, 17,000 share buyer, 11,500 share buyer. And so, unfortunately, I recognized that this was probably going to cross a point where so many people were buying and selling it just to try to make a couple cents a share that it was going to be very thickly traded, and that was going to hurt its ability to make another move higher. And so, unfortunately, that was the reality. Now, technically, this did have a news catalyst from earlier, but I take that with a little bit of a grain of salt because this trade was not based on breaking news coming out. The news was out way earlier in the day. The stock popped up, sold off, popped up, sold off, and then it ripped. So this to me felt more like kind of this frenzied momentum that we're continuing to experience in the market where traders, for whatever reason, just decide to jump on this. And then, well, I jumped on too. I participated more in the top of the move, but nonetheless, that's where I jumped on. And that's typically the way I trade. You won't see me just looking for a stock that has no volume, that's just trading sideways to go buy it. I look for things that are already moving, and then I jump on that momentum. But, in a hot market, I might get in something already up 100%. Next thing you know, it's up 200%. In a cold market, I get in these high, and I end up giving back some profit. So you've seen it even in the last few days that some of these I add too high and then I end up being on the wrong side. So if you miss the beginning of the move, that's the place to be extra careful chasing it as it goes higher and just to accept that, there's a really good chance there'll be another one around the corner. So as I sit here today, I can't believe it, but I'm so grateful that I was able to recover yesterday's loss, donate another $10,000 to 2 children's hospitals, and the small account challenge is now, back on track. Basically, yesterday was canceled out. So I'm still at $80,000, essentially washing out the 2 days. And the next goal is 100 grand. And Wyoming is the next state on the list to do a charitable donation to. And then, well, I guess we're going to have to start looking at, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and probably have to, I don't know, maybe we'll do one or two little donations for Canada. Maybe we should. So let's think about that. All right. So thank you guys always for tuning in. If you haven't already checked out a 2-week trial, link is pinned at the top of the comments and in the description, so you can check that out. But I will remind you, as always, my results are not typical. Trading is risky. There is no guarantee you'll find success, whether you trade with me or you learn on your own. So please manage your risk, take it slow, and always practice in a simulator before putting real money on the line. With that, I will see you guys back at it bright and early, streaming tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.